I'm setting out to watch every single Planet of the Apes movie, and today we're talking about Okay, so I'm gonna spoil my ranking a little bit. This is my favorite Planet of the Apes movie. This movie is batshit absurd, and it blew my mind on my first watch. It's exactly the kind of like cheesy sci-fi shit that I like, and it also becomes like this weird commentary that I didn't expect them to do, and that commentary is part of a larger group of movies that I really enjoy that we'll talk about later. It's not very subtle, but this movie is about nukes and how it affected the mind sphere of the American people in 1970s. So, Beneath the Planet of the Apes is essentially a remake of the first movie for the first half of this movie, and then it becomes something entirely different. We have an astronaut, Brant, who is looking for Taylor. He has the same sort of origin story as Taylor, where he hits a wormhole, ends up on the Planet of the Apes, goes to Ape City, makes some friends, makes some enemies, oops, leaves. I don't want to blow through this movie though, so I'm going to hit a little bit of the key points that I know that are in the movie. Damn. That are in the movie. Taylor is shown with Nova after the events of the first movie with a horse, and they're laying out together, and he's trying to teach her how to say her name. He's trying to teach her how to say her name. Because she can't talk. Yes. Foolish. But after that scene, we were shown Taylor through some rough VFX, falling through a wall of fire in the Forbidden Zone. Nova is left behind and finds Brant and tries to communicate that Taylor is in trouble and needs his help. She can't speak, so she leads him to Zira and Cornelius in Ape City. This movie is inherently more political, that fleshes out a lot of the different sectors of the ape culture and how they act and what they do within the society. In this movie, we're introduced to General Ursus, who is a gorilla who is the leader of the army. There's a militant force that's the gorillas, there's a science division that's the orangutans, and then there's, I don't know if they're chimps, I don't know what kind of ape they are, but then there's the other ones who are just kind of the regular people. They do whatever they need. So after Brent is taken to Ape City, we pretty much do the entirety of the first movie over again with Brent instead of Taylor. By the way, Brent looks exactly like Charlton Heston. They just picked the next guy that looked like the first guy. What? But that's okay. I'm gonna be very forgiving of this movie that a lot of people hate because I love it. Just gonna let you know that now. A lot of people's big criticism with this movie I've found is that it is incredibly on the nose. There's no subtlety to it. It's in your face and you know exactly what's going on throughout the movie, and what happens at the end, you get it. You don't really need to sit with it other than when seeing it. I think that it being on the nose is admirable for the time, because in the 70s I feel like a lot of people were using allegories to talk about nuclear war, and then there's things like Doctor Strangelove and this, which I think are inextricably intertwined in a very weird way. So after we do the original events of the first movie, where they go through Ape City, they get captured, they leave, they go back, they go forth, they're everywhere. They eventually get to the point from the first movie where they're cast out to the Forbidden Zone, and the apes are chasing them again. But this time, they're militant. They're ready to fight. They're going to war with whatever humans are in the Forbidden Zone. No! Not the human! I know that they assume there's an entire race of people living in the Forbidden Zone that they're gonna have to war with. But I think it's really funny to think that maybe one of them is and there's only 3 of them. Do we need 400 guys to go out here right now? I could probably stay home. As Brent and Nova are rushed through the Forbidden Zone, being chased by the apes, they're forced into a cavern and they have to go underground. Beneath. Whoa. They go deeper and deeper into this cave until they get to a point eventually where they're deep enough and they can look around and there's things still on the walls, coated in beautiful sets, by the way. Whoever did these sets, incredible. Good shit. They get to a point where Brent can tell where they are. They are in the New York City subway station. This doesn't have the same punch as the Statue of Liberty, obviously, but I still think it's a great reveal. They do it well and it looks great, and I feel like it kind of immerses you more in the world, and you get, it's a bit of a world building sprinkle, you know? It gives it in there. I want my room to look like these sets. Living in a little cave, like a freak. As they travel deeper into the caves and the subway systems, they're noticing more artifacts of New York, and they start hearing a loud humming noise, which I'm gonna play because it's really annoying, and when you're watching the movie, genuinely gives you a sense of dread, in my opinion. It sucks, right? I get it. Eventually, the hum grows so loud that it drives Brent insane, and he's unable to control himself. And he grabs Nova in a very frightening scene, and he's drowning her in a well. It's really weird. He breaks out of it, and he looks through a door behind them, and he sees a man in a church worshiping a nuclear warhead plated with gold. It's so on the nose. It's awesome. This is where I was 100% locked in. You couldn't take me away from this movie if you tried. a futuristic society of humans like worshipping a nuclear warhead is so visceral in my opinion, and such great imagery that I was so lost. While this is all happening, we're gonna go back to Ape City because there's another whole plot going on with Zira and Cornelius trying to find their way with Zaius and General Ursus within Ape City. There's civil unrest in the city. Since Taylor, the military has become stronger and tried to accrue more power so that if anything comes through their gates again, they can exterminate it. The apes are trying to go into the Forbidden Zone, like I said, to stamp out any more humans that would eventually enter their city and threaten their way of life. And in Ape City, we are seeing full-on protests, like Vietnam level, like people in the streets stopping the military with signs, kids rising up, being smarter than the people above them and not fighting the war that they don't want to fight. Kind of crazy. It's just a nice little like world building piece that I like in the movie that doesn't really add much to the rest of the plot, but it's nice to know. Back with Brent now, he is taken to a hall with a bunch of these human mutants who end up being the council. They have different colored headpieces and they are all communicating to him through the humming that they have. So all the telepathic mutant abilities are shown and that's how they communicate. Do you see what I'm saying? This shit kind of rocks. Like it's mutant humans that are telepathic worshipping a nuclear bomb while fighting monkeys with guns. That's movies, man. As Brent speaks to the mutants, the apes grow closer and closer and closer. Brent tells the humans that the apes are coming, and the humans decide to throw one last hoorah and call together a church service for the nuke one last time. Brent and Nova are thrown in a jail cell where they find Taylor, but we'll come back to that. The church scene is truly mind-blowing. All the humans are worshipping this nuke, and then at a certain point in the service, they all pull their faces off and reveal that they are wearing skin masks and that they are veiny, alien-like creatures underneath that are humans radiated by this nuke that they've been surrounding themselves around for eternities. Back to Brent, Taylor, and Nova, they all find each other. They're kind of palling up, trying to figure out how to get out, when one of the guards comes in and telepathically makes Brent and Taylor fight, which I feel like was a studio note. I don't know, it feels really weird and out of place and annoying, but they beat the shit out of each other for a while. Nova eventually stops them by yelling Taylor's name, and they escape. They get past the guard and they get to the church service, and they all are involved in a huge brawl with essentially three parties trying to figure out what is best. None of them listening to the other, just all-out war. The entire room stops as Taylor gets close to the button that sets off the nuclear device. Zaius tries to convince Taylor not to, but Taylor has decided that this world has had enough. With his final strength after being shot, he pushes the button. It all goes dark. He destroyed the entire planet of the apes! Where are we gonna go now that there's 7-8 more movies left and the entire planet of the apes has been destroyed? Weird. You ever heard of a cool thing called time travel? Ever heard of it? Yeah, the timelines for these movies are fucked, and they just go off in a billion different directions, and we will explain it when we get there. So when I mentioned that this movie is part of a larger movement in cinema, this is what I was talking about. Cold War cinema, or post-war cinema, consists of films that are made with the mindset of World War II is over, nukes have entered the playing field, and how does everyone feel about it? Spoilers, most filmmakers are pretty scared of them. Rightfully so. How are you supposed to go back to making entertainment when you know that your country won a war by decimating more people with one blast than ever had happened before? American filmmakers were shook to their core. This led to a movement in film that would specifically hone in on the aspects of American life that related with the idea that the world was now incredibly volatile and humans cannot be trusted with the magnitude of power that a nuclear bomb brings. I am very serious when I say that this Planet of the Apes movie and Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove are very intertwined narratively. Both of the filmmakers for these movies have a distinct outlook on the world and how the involving of a nuclear bomb could really muddy up that world. Overall, I feel like Cold War / post-war cinema is some of my favorite because it usually feels really ahead of its time and it connects the fears of today with the fears of yesterday. But yeah, Beneath the Planet of the Apes is like metal as fuck and I love it, and it's a perfect encapsulation of like Cold War cinema at the time mixed with like blockbuster cinema of the time, and I think it's awesome. Like imagine your movie ends with you just blowing up the fucking earth and then there's a sequel a year later. Like that's crazy. That's some 60s, 70s sci-fi and I love it. Yeah, so next week I guess we have to... I don't know how I'm gonna translate.